The bright lights of a CNN studio flickered to life, casting shadows across the faces of everyone present. It was a typical evening broadcast. The hum of activity in the control room, the polished scripts, the rhythm of news anchors reading, headlines, all the usual chaos of live television. But tonight was different. Tonight, something unexpected was about to unfold. Karoline Leavitt, a young Republican politician, sat in front of the cameras, her poised demeanor betraying none of the tension that buzzed in the air around her. She had become a rising star in the political world, known for her sharp rhetoric and uncompromising views. And as the interview began, no one could have anticipated that her words would cause the kind of stir that would ripple far beyond the studio walls. The host, a seasoned CNN anchor, asked her a simple question about recent political events, expecting a standard response. But Karoline's answer, brimming with shock value, was anything but ordinary. The tension in the room shifted immediately, and the studio audience held its breath. Why was this young, confident politician suddenly veering off script? What would the fallout be from the words she was about to utter? In the next few moments, the world would witness something rare on live television. A reaction so unexpected, it couldn't be ignored. The studio lights, once familiar and comforting, now felt suffocating. Karoline sat upright, her hands gripping the edges of her seat as the host, trying to maintain his professional composure, asked her about her stance on a highly controversial issue that had been dominating the headlines. The question was expected, one she had prepared for, but what came next wasn't scripted. Karoline's response, though calm, was an unflinching declaration that rocked the entire room. She boldly spoke of political conspiracy theories that most of her colleagues would have dared not acknowledge in public. The words tumbled out of her mouth with shocking clarity. The system is broken, and we're living in a time where truth has become irrelevant to power. The air in the studio thickened. Gasps rippled through the room as the host's eyes widened in disbelief. The camera crew shifted nervously, and the producer in the control room frantically gestured to cut the feed. But it was too late. For the first time, Karoline realized the weight of her words. She had ignited a firestorm, one she wasn't sure she could control. Her friends, a tight-knit group of political insiders, had warned her about being too outspoken. But now, it wasn't just the establishment that would come for her. It was the entire media machine. The chaos inside the studio escalated within seconds. The host, still reeling from Karoline's unexpected outburst, quickly attempted to steer the conversation in a safer direction. But it was no use. The words hung in the air like a grenade, ticking down with every passing moment. Karoline could see the shock in the faces of her fellow panelists, some of whom exchanged uncomfortable glances. The producer's voice crackled in her earpiece, urging her to stay on message. But her defiant response had already sparked a firestorm. Backstage, Karoline's team rushed to calm her down, trying to reassure her that the show must go on. But inside, she was a whirlwind of emotions. She had just crossed a line. Could she take back what she had said? Could she control the damage? As the interview ended, Karoline was bombarded with questions from reporters, each one more pointed and aggressive than the last. They wanted more. They wanted answers. The cameras were unforgiving, capturing every twitch of her expression, every shift of her eyes. The immediate consequence was clear. Her social media feeds exploded with both condemnation and support. A chaotic mix of love and hate. But there was one question that kept swirling in her mind. Was it worth it? A moment of doubt crept in. Had she just thrown away everything she had worked for? Karoline couldn't escape the noise. Her phone buzzed nonstop with messages. Texts, tweets, emails, each one more insistent than the last. Yet, amid the sea of digital chaos, there was one message that stood out. It wasn't from a friend, a colleague, or even a political ally. It was from a mysterious number she didn't recognize. The message simply read, "You've awakened something much bigger than you realize. Be careful. They're watching." The words hit her like a cold wave. Who was this person? And what did they mean by they? Karoline tried to shake off the feeling, chalking it up to paranoia, but a creeping unease gnawed at her. For the first time, she felt exposed, like a pawn in a game much larger than herself. As the days passed, the media frenzy intensified. Her name was splashed across headlines, her words dissected by pundits on every channel. But then, something unexpected happened. A powerful political figure, someone she'd admired for years, reached out to her privately, offering an unexpected alliance. In that moment, Karoline realized this wasn't just about her anymore. The stakes had shifted. She wasn't merely fighting for her career. She was up against a system much darker, more calculated, and deeply entrenched than she could have ever imagined. And now, her voice had become a threat. Karoline stood at the podium, her palms sweating as she faced the crowd. The cameras were rolling, and the world was watching. Her earlier words had ignited a firestorm, but now, she had no choice but to confront the storm head-on. The very system she had criticized was pushing back with a vengeance. Political rivals, media outlets, even her own allies turning against her. Yet, as she gazed out at the sea of faces, she felt a strange sense of clarity. The mysterious message, "They're watching," still echoed in her mind, but she no longer felt afraid. She had come too far to back down now. This was her moment. As she began to speak, Karoline could see the divided reactions in the crowd. Some faces were filled with skepticism, while others looked at her with admiration, perhaps even hope. She spoke passionately about the need for change, exposing the corruption and manipulation at the highest levels of power. Her words were raw, vulnerable, but incredibly powerful. And then, as she hit the crescendo of her speech, something shifted. The tension in the room seemed to snap. The powerful political figure who had reached out to her earlier walked into the room, standing by her side. In that single moment, Karoline realized she was no longer alone. The battle was no longer just hers. The war for truth had truly begun. The days that followed were a whirlwind. Karoline's speech had gone viral, her words echoing across the nation. Allies who once hesitated now rallied around her, while her detractors, some former friends and colleagues, scrambled to discredit her. But Karoline was no longer just a politician. She had become a symbol of defiance against a broken system. The mysterious message had never been explained, but Karoline now understood it in a way she hadn't before. She had been drawn into something larger than herself, an awakening, a fight not just for her future, but for the truth. She had spoken out and risked it all, but in doing so, she had set off a chain reaction that no one could control. In the end, Karoline had not only weathered the storm, but emerged stronger. The political figure who had stood by her now became a key ally, helping her build the foundation for a new movement, one rooted in transparency, courage, and the belief that the truth would always find its way to the surface. As she looked out over a crowd of new supporters, Karoline smiled. She had taken a leap into the unknown and found herself, not just as a politician, but as a voice that could no longer be silenced. Sometimes it's the truth that shakes the world, and sometimes it's the truth that saves it.